Hello and welcome to Crafting in Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered Part 1. I already have a complete series of videos about crafting for those of you who are using the Legacy 2nd Edition rules, and a link to those videos is provided in this video's description. In this video, we're going to discuss the foundation used for all crafting. We'll be covering all of the general requirements and rules, and in the next course, we'll get into specifics for crafting special items like scrolls, wands, runes, and also crafting weapons and armor using special materials like cold iron or adamantine. The crafting skill can be used for a variety of activities such as identifying alchemical items and repairing broken gear, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to focus on using the crafting skill to create items. Before you can start crafting, there are a few requirements that you will need to meet. First, the item that you wish to craft must be your experience level or lower. If no item level is included in the item stats, then it's considered to be item level 0. Second, you must have the proper proficiency. You must be at least trained in crafting in order to craft any items. If the item's level is 9th or higher, then you need to have master proficiency in crafting to make it. And if the item's level is 16th or higher, then you need to have legendary proficiency. Third, you might need a special feat to craft the item. The crafting skill by itself is sufficient to make most common mundane items like gear and common non-magical weapons and armor. But if you wish to craft specialty items like those we will discuss in depth in the next video in this series, then you will need some special feats. If you want to make alchemical items like elixirs, poisons, and bombs, then you need the alchemical crafting feat. If you want to make any magical items, including scrolls, then you need the magical crafting feat. And if you want to create snares like traps and alarms, then you need the snare crafting feat. The fourth requirement for crafting is you must have the right tools for the job. An alchemist's lab is needed to craft alchemical items, a writing set is needed to craft scrolls, and so on. Artisan toolkits are provided as a sort of catch-all term. When purchasing one of these sets, you need to declare what kind of tools they are. For example, woodworking tools if you're working on carpentry, or a brewing kit if you want to make beer. In some cases, you'll also need a workshop as determined by your GM. For example, you'll need access to a forge if you want to make a metal shield. There's no hard rule for this in the book, so it's up to common sense and again the GM's discretion. The fifth requirement only applies if what you are making is not common rarity, and that is you must have something to work off of. In other words, you can't make an uncommon or rare item just off the top of your head. You either need a sample of that item that you are going to make a copy of, or you need the item's formula. Although formula is the term used in the game, this could be a recipe, a blueprint, a schematic, or any other form of instructions to follow. Note again that you do not need a work sample or formula to craft common items, and you are not required to have the item's formula for uncommon and rare items if you have a sample of the item you are making a copy of. But all of that said, it is always a best practice to have the item's formula, because working from a formula will cut the amount of time required to craft the item in half. Obtaining formulas for common rarity items is pretty easy. A basic crafter's book can be purchased for 1 silver piece, and it has all of the formulas for crafting common items found in Chapter 6 of the Player Core book. So this one purchase provides all of the formulas for swords, bows, chainmail, musical instruments, brewing ale, and pretty much everything else that's considered to be common. And if you wish to purchase the formula for a common rarity item that is found in a different book, you can do so according to the table here. Formulas for items that are uncommon or rare are only available at the GM's discretion, and likely will either be incredibly expensive or awarded as part of treasure. Honestly, given that acquiring the formulas for common items is so easy, you should probably just consider that having the formula for the item that you're crafting is a requirement, unless you have a sample that you're working from. And last, you need raw materials worth at least half of the listed cost of the item. If you are creating a common item like a longsword, as long as you're in a settlement, you can probably just pay the price in silver, but more exotic items might require very specific and harder to find materials that you will need to source. Once you meet the requirements, have the proper tools, a formula or work sample, and the required materials, then you're ready to get to work. In order to create the item, you must invest an amount of time or resources equal to its listed price, and always start by providing 50% of that total cost up front. You then spend 2 days of downtime working, or only 1 day of downtime working if you are using a formula. So after 1 or 2 days of working, depending on if you have the formula, you then roll your crafting skill and the GM compares that total against a secret DC that they set. On a failure, your progress stops, but you don't lose any of the money or resources you've already invested and can start the process over again. Critical failures work the same way, except you lose 10% of the materials that were used. But if the skill check is a success, you have a few options. Your first option is to pay the remaining balance needed and complete the work. You always start by putting up 50% of the item's price. So if you roll a success after 1 day of work with a formula, you just need to pay the remaining 50% cost to instantly complete it. This does not save you any money and it takes some time, but might be worth it if the item you're making is not available for purchase in your area, or if it's important that the item was made specifically by you. For example, if you're crafting a painting or other work of art. Your second option after rolling a success is to invest more time in crafting it. Every day of additional work lowers the amount of resources needed to complete the item by an amount equal to the table found on page 229. So, for example, if you are 8th level with expert proficiency in crafting, every additional day of downtime spent beyond what is required would lower the needed resources to complete the item by 3 gold pieces. And if you roll a critical success, you treat yourself as being 1 level higher. So, if you're, again, an 8th level expert and roll a critical success, you would lower the amount of resources needed by 4 gold instead of 3 for each extra day of downtime spent working on the item. After each day of work, you can decide if you want to pay off the remaining balance to finish your work and complete the item, or if you want to spend 1 more day of work to lower the remaining balance that's needed. Note that no additional skill checks are needed for the extra days spent crafting. Once you roll a success, it's just a matter of counting days and seeing how long you want to work and how much more money you're willing to pay in order to finish. Now this might have you wondering about things like arrows. Do you really need to spend an entire day to make a single arrow? The good news is no, you don't. It's not quite that bad. If you wish to craft ammunition or any item with the consumable trait, you can make those in batches. Non-magical ammunition is created in batches equal to their numbers shown on page 281. So, blowgun darts, crossbow bolts, and arrows are all made in batches of 10. And all other items with the consumable trait, including magical ammunition, are made in batches of 4. When you create by batch, every item in that batch must be identical. There's no mixing and matching. So you can't make 5 arrows and 5 crossbow bolts in the same batch. It has to be 10 of one or 10 of the other. Crafting in batches works the same way as crafting individual items, except you add the price of each item together. So if you're making a batch of 4 vials of holy water, the price would be 12 gold, and you would need to provide 6 gold up front for the material cost. Other than that, crafting in batches works the same as what we have already discussed. In this video, we examined the basics of crafting, and the next video expands that discussion to cover magic items and crafting weapons and armor with precious materials. I will also be uploading a full example of crafting in the Remastered Edition from start to finish, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And I'd like to take a quick moment to thank everyone who supports me in this channel by clicking that like button, subscribing to the channel, or subscribing to the Patreon. Thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming!